What's up, guys? Joe from Odyssey Offroad here. Thanks for tuning into the channel again. So this is going to basically be kind of a update review of the RMax. It's got 600 miles on it now. So I figured I've had it long enough, put enough miles on it to kind of get a good taste of what its capabilities are, what its shortcomings are, what its positives are, and figured I'd share that information with you. A lot of you guys ask, how it's holding up, all that stuff. So I will start off by saying it has been extremely reliable. Hasn't had a single hiccup, and just pretty much turn the key and drive. Haven't had any issues with anything at all. The biggest downfall of the machine, I would say, well, two really. First one being the maintenance on it is a little bit of a pain in the neck. If you guys watched, if you haven't already, I won't get into too much detail on that, but check out my videos on the maintenance and how to change the fluids in this machine. That could be a little bit of a pain, because changing the oil, you got the engine cover, it's a mid-engine design, so you got to take the engine cover off. Changing the oil, there's like 6 drain bolts you gotta drain, so that's a little bit of a process. And that's really, the transmission fluid, their fluids, they're pretty easy. I would say it's mostly the engine oil change, which is the biggest pain in the neck. But depending on how much you use the machine and how often you change your oil, that'll determine really how big of a problem that is for you. I've done all the first services for the initial break-in at about 180 miles, changed all the fluids, and so we're still good to go for a while on this machine. I would say the second drawback to this machine is, unlike the 2-seater, where everybody raves about the suspension and how great it is, the 4-seater, while very plush, while you're doing some slow trails, crawling, stuff like that, in anything over 30 miles an hour, I would say, the rear suspension bucks a lot, and is it's quite bumpy for the rear passengers, and that's just the nature of how the machine is designed. You have a unit with the rear seats right on top of the back tires, so that's going to happen. You got to expect those kind of things. The other thing with this machine is, and the reason why the rear suspension isn't as good as the 2-seater, is they limited the amount of suspension travel in the 4-seaters by like 3 or 4 inches. So the 2-seaters got a significant amount of suspension travel advantage over this machine. So that's really the downfall. Other than that, I would say, if you're using this machine for like tight wooded trails, technical trail riding, switchbacks, hill climbs, stuff like that, this thing is unbelievable with that stuff. The 4-wheel drive system is terrific, one of the best I've had. The front locker, although I've never needed it, I've tried it out once, and it just climbs effortlessly. I love the drive modes in it. The drive modes are a terrific feature. So pretty much what you have here in this machine, with the drive modes, trail, sport, and crawl, between that and the high and low gear, you can really vary how the machine reacts in all different terrains. So for example, you could put it in each one of those modes in high gear or low gear. So you really have like 6 different modes almost to choose from. My favorite personally is I mostly keep it in trail mode, in high gear for regular driving. I hardly ever put it in sport mode, and that's just because the acceleration in sport mode is neck jerking, like from a dead stop. If you're just, doing high speed and you're not really coming to a stop, taking off again, coming to a stop, taking off again, it's fine. But when you're from a dead stop, there's no subtle acceleration. It's just on the gas, and it really throws you back in sport mode from a dead stop. Now, trail mode, it just kind of eases it into a little more. Crawl mode takes a lot of the throttle input away. So I'll put it in crawl mode, and low gear. And that kind of really, that's like billy goat mode. You put this thing in 4-wheel drive, put it in low gear, and put it in crawl mode, and it just climbs slowly and effortlessly over anything with zero tire spin. It's just terrific that way. The navigation system here, you know, the Yamaha one, some people complain about it, but the Polaris guys complain about theirs. I like the Adventure Pro. I think it's very useful. I haven't had any issues with the software, any hiccups like that. It takes a minute or two to boot up. It's made by Magellan, as you can see there on the screen. But the maps are terrific. They're very clear. You can zoom in on them. You can take the tablet out, bring it in your house, upload maps to it, with an SD card. So that to me is terrific. I like that feature. I don't know why people seem to have an issue with it. I like it. It works pretty well. So that being said, 600 miles here on it, as you can see right on the dot. And as you can see there, it takes a minute or two to boot up. The only downfall to this tablet system, I would say, is the charging of it. So right now it's in the car, it's in its docking station, it charges while you're driving and while it's running. If you shut the key off, it'll kind of just go into sleep mode. Like if you would have had a tablet in your house or your computer and you just kind of close the lid on your laptop, or hit the power button, just tap the power button and it kind of just turns the screen off, but it doesn't turn the power off. That's kind of what it'll do. If you push and hold the red button after you shut it off, it's like turning off your tablet. So then it'll give you the option to shut down. It's Android based. So just, remember to do that and it'll shut down and won't keep running in the background on you while it's at home sitting in your garage for a couple weeks. But if it does die, you do forget about it. Like now, mine I forgot last time. The battery's pretty empty. So as soon as you turn the key on, it gets the voltage from the battery on the machine. It boots up and it runs off that, and it'll charge from the vehicle. So you can see the battery voltage low. So I will say also that the interior of the machine is probably, sounds odd for such a compact machine, but it's one of the most comfortable machines from a driver perspective. So when you're sitting in the machine and you're driving, you're just in a very nice seating position. The visibility is great. You can look out and see to the tires. All your controls are nice and close. The seats are very comfortable and bolstered. You don't slide around a lot on the seats, and I like that. Everything's right here for you. So it comes with the mirror standard, the roof. So you have these little knee pads here, and after using the machine and driving around in it, they work out great, because if you're just doing some really rocky, rough terrain and you got your foot on the gas pedal and your other foot on the dead pedal, and you kind of want to rest your knees, kind of hold you in place a little bit more, your knees don't get banged up. I mean, I go out often in shorts. We go for a ride, and even if you get jostled around, your knees bang. It hits the rubber. It's just a soft rubber pad. So while at first glance, if you're looking at this machine in the showroom, you might think it's a little gimmicky, but it actually does work. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've come back from a machine and from a ride and gotten out of this machine after a long ride, like over 100 miles, and just felt great, like I can keep going. So the machine really does a nice job of keeping you comfortable while you're riding it. One downfall of the cab, I would say, is, and I'll show you, the gas pedal, for whatever reason, is super slick. So here on the brake pedal, you'll see it's just flat steel, and then you have these holes cut out for some grip, traction on your foot. The gas pedal is just a smooth sheet of steel, so your foot slides up and down the gas pedal while you're out riding. So what I've done, as you can see, is I've got some grip tape at the hardware store. So it's just type of grip tape you would get, like, to put on, say, the front edge of a step. It's for outdoor use, or an area where it gets slippery when it's wet and you have some traction. It just got a little sheet of that. It was like $10-12 at Ace Hardware. Trimmed it, cleaned the pedal with alcohol and stuck it on there. Now there's no issue there, so you have plenty of traction. Your foot doesn't slide around when you're riding. Otherwise, your foot will slowly slide up the pedal as you're off-roading with the machine. So moving on to the outside, the lighting is terrific. I went out once in the evening with it. I don't do too much night riding, but the visibility is great you get with the factory lighting. You have the daytime running lights, which are always on here, and then your LED headlights and high beams are terrific. They're super clear. They give off great light. I mean, far down the trail. The front styling of this machine is awesome. I think it gets a little quirky in the back, just because it's so square and with the tailgate and all that. Two-seaters do look a little nicer. But if you need 4 seats and you don't want a big machine, this is really the best machine to get in this class, in my opinion. If you want a smaller machine, the only really machine that competes with it as 4-seater goes, the way it's built, is like a Honda Pioneer or a Kawasaki old school Teryx. And I think this machine beats both of those by a long shot. The front suspension is terrific. The rear suspension could use some more travel. That's really the downfall of the ride on this thing. Other than that, like I said before, if you're doing a lot of trail riding, if you're cruising around, tight woods, and you're navigating some switchbacks, tight technical stuff, this is perfect. And you have to have 4 seats, because sometimes the long machines can be a little cumbersome, 3-point turns and all that stuff. Now, if you're open desert riding and you're just pounding whoops or hammering through the desert, this is probably not the machine, because the rear suspension is just not adequate enough for that type of riding. So it really depends on what you're going to do with the machine and how you're going to use it. That's what I'll say with that. It can be a little bit of a negative, but it's also a positive. It's a very stable machine for having 4 seats in a compact base like this, with the rear seats being over the back suspension. It's very stable. You don't feel ever that it's tippy or top heavy. You don't get that feeling in this machine. The other thing I like about it, I like the styling. I mean, personally, I've gone through that already, but I really like the styling of the machine. I like how it's almost like factory rock sliders, and you can put like the additional rock slide covers over those, and you don't have to add anything to the machine. It protects the bottom of your doors, protects everything. So it's really a nice setup. I like the RMax. It's been a great machine, 600 miles. Like I said, the really only negatives I can think of are the rear suspension being what it is, and that's just the nature of the beast. Nothing you can really do about that. And then changing the oil. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck, because you got to take the engine cover off to get to everything. Then you got to get underneath, and there's at least 6 drain bolts, 5 or 6 drain bolts that you got to get. So engine cover pops right off. The biggest maintenance headache in this machine is really when you have to do the clutch maintenance. You don't almost never need to change a belt on here. Belts, the 10-year belt warranty from Yamaha, and I've never heard of anybody blowing a belt in an RMax. But you have to take the seat out. You got to take all those panels off on the side of the center console to get to your clutches. So at 1,600 miles, you have to do a clutch maintenance, and you should be doing that on any machine. On this machine, they say by 1,600 miles, take it all apart, clean it, re-grease the rollers, and put it all back together. So that's going to be a bit of a headache. That's probably your biggest maintenance headache with these machines. Other than that, the oil change is a little bit of a pain in the neck, but the rest of the stuff is fairly simple. Spark plugs are easy to get to when it comes to time, right on top of the engine once you get the engine cover off. As far as mods, I mean, we haven't really done much. You see half windshield. I put a stopper for the winch cable so it's not rattling around. And then we did the front aluminum bash plate. That's pretty much it. I haven't ever had to use the winch. I don't really need the winch. It came on the machine. It's great. It's good to have in a pinch. If you're out riding by yourself a lot, God forbid, you get stuck, you're alone, you can winch yourself out. So it's good to have it on the machine. It's always better to have it and not use it and not need it, and then to need it and not have it, right? So it comes on the machine. It's a nice feature. And you get a lot for your money with this machine, I think. The stereo system is great. That SSV Works stereo system, I think is terrific. When you're going fast, obviously, it's going to be harder to hear it, the volume-wise. You have to crank it up. But you can crank the stereo system up very loud without it distorting, whereas the Polaris Pro XP I had, the stereo system in that, the Rockford Fosgate system, they were both similar in that they don't come with a sub. But that system I felt broke up and got distorted more at higher volumes than this one does. And this one's a little more easier to hear when you're cruising and you got the volume cranked up. So rear seat comfort is terrific. I've showed you guys on the initial walk around. There's plenty of room back here to hop in and sit if you're an adult. The kids don't have any problems with comfort back here. The only complaint they have is when, you know, they're really bumpy trails and you're right on top of the rear tires, so you get jostled around a little bit. That's their only complaint. Other than that, you know, if you're not riding super aggressively or fast, that's a non-issue. Quality of the paint, everything's held up really well. I wash mine pretty regularly, and then use like a ceramic detail spray or wax, spray wax on it after I clean it, and it just, you know, keeps it terrific. The paint quality, the finish is automotive quality, I would say. It's very, very high end. There's no paint chips in the front. It's super smooth. The water stains, nothing like that. It's held up really well, so that's good. As far as that, I mean, it's really all I got to say about it. I don't have much negative to say other than those two things, and it's really been a positive ownership experience with this machine. And Yamaha, as you can see, I have other Yamahas, you guys know if you watch the channel, but Yamaha makes a great product. So if you're considering one of these machines and you're wondering how it's going to hold up, I mean, there's countless number of people online and on Facebook, on the forums, that have many, many miles on theirs, more than me, with no issues. You're always going to get a handful with issues. That's any manufacturer. But as far as the rate of issues, and compared to, say, Polaris, or not so much Can-Am, but Polaris for sure, it's just not the same. It's much higher quality stuff. These Japanese makers, manufacturers, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Honda, I mean, they're far less issues and they're far more reliable than the Polarises. That's just not really my opinion. It's pretty factual. I mean, like I said, every machine is going to have issues, but the rate of issues and the types of issues you have, blowing belts, all that stuff, that's pretty much non-existent in these Yamahas and Kawasaki's, because the way they set their clutches up, I mean, they just get it right from the factory. So that's about it for this one, guys. I want to make it kind of quick and sweet, and just kind of give you guys a quick walk around and go over how she's been for 600 miles. And thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions about the machine, anything I didn't cover here, you want to know, just leave a comment below. I'll try to get back to almost everybody if I can. Unless you say something stupid, then I'll let your comment sit there. I'm not going to answer you. But if you got a real question and you need some help with something, or if I didn't cover it here and you're just not sure you're going to buy one, I do try to answer everybody. So I appreciate everybody who's watching. Please smash that like button. Follow us on Instagram at Odyssey_Offroad on Instagram, and you kind of get a sneak peek of what's to come here on the YouTube channel there. So thanks again for tuning in. You guys get out there and ride and be safe.